I don't like when people report on such a granular level that they're making micro optimizations because all of marketing needs to work together. And so I see people like this channel within this campaign didn't work. And it's like, well, you have to look at things holistically.
The CMOs want like $3.5 million to be spent on people and $1.5 million on programs. And then once we get into the year, they're like, well, I can't deliver that because I only have $1.5 million in programs. So it's like, I don't know, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Get out of Excel and focus on what you're going to do differently next year.
Yeah, a little bit of Excel, a little bit of math. Make sure the math maps.
There's nothing less sexy than an enterprise B2B sales MarTech tool trying to be cool on LinkedIn.
You know, sometimes the algorithm still works and you're like, we're back in 2022. And then sometimes I'm like, wow, no one likes me. A community is not a Slack channel that nobody asked for. I don't necessarily know what a community is, but it's not that.
That trick question took a turn, Kyle.
The trick question really came back at you. I need you to give a because that's the frustrating thing. When you're like, hey, finance, I did all this work. Like, this is just not possible. Like, the math doesn't math. I'm not trying to be conservative here. The math doesn't math. And they're like, we can hit it anyway. And you're like, no, but like, really, we can't.
From Mostly Media, it's Mostly Growth. Go-to-market strategist Kyle Poyer and CFO CJ Gustafson share smart takes on growing revenue and running a company, pricing, unit economics, AI, leadership, candid insights for CEOs, CFOs, and CROs, or anyone else aspiring to climb to the C-suite. This is Mostly Growth.
Hey, thanks for listening. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. You just launched your new AI product. The new pricing page looks great. I'm talking crisp. But behind it, last-minute glued code, messy spreadsheets, and running ad hoc queries to figure out what to bill. Customers get invoices they can't understand. Engineers are chasing billing bugs. Finance can't close the books. Well, with Metronome, you hand it all off to the real-time billing infrastructure that just works. Reliable, flexible, and built to grow with you. They turn raw usage events into accurate invoices, give customers bills they actually understand, and keep every team in sync in real time. Whether you're launching usage-based pricing, managing enterprise contracts, or rolling out new AI services, Metronome does the heavy lifting so you can focus on your product, not your billing. That's why some of the fastest growing companies in the world like OpenAI and Anthropic run their billing on Metronome. Visit metronome.com to learn more. That's metronome.com. As a CFO, you're expected to bring clarity to everything, including how your company manages ownership. The tools you use should make that easier, not harder. But when they come with hidden fees, data you can't always trust, and support you can't rely on, you end up with more frustration than clarity. That's where Pulley comes in. Pulley is a cap table management platform built for finance leaders who need accurate, decision-ready data from a system that works for your business, not against it. With Pulley, you get intuitive workflows, audit-ready reporting, and support you can count on, all backed by predictable pricing you can plan around, so you can stay compliant and make smarter decisions about your company's future. Manage everything from fundraise modeling to ASC 718 reporting to custom liquidity programs, all on one trusted platform. Hundreds of high-growth companies like Linear, Fathom, and Runway trust Pulley to help turn ownership into a strategic advantage. And joining them is now easier than ever. You can switch to Pulley in as little as 5 days. And for a limited time, they're offering 25% off your first year. To claim your exclusive offer, visit pulley.com/mostlymetrics. That is pulley.com/mostlymetrics. Please, guys, I really need this. pulley.com/mostlymetrics.
Welcome back to another episode of Mostly Growth, and now it's Mostly Growth with friends. So joining us for the podcast today is Emily Kramer. I recently called her a B2B marketing whisperer, which I think is true, and she was head of marketing at places like Asana and Carta. She writes an insanely popular newsletter that I'll call MKT1, but she'll probably correct me. And she hosts the Dear Marketers podcast. Even if you don't know Emily, you've probably seen her frameworks online. You probably use them without attributing her, but they're just so memorable. And Emily and I were recently called the Steph Curry and Taylor Swift of B2B marketing. And I do have to ask you two questions about that, Emily. First off, who's Steph Curry?
The player on the Warriors.
What are the Warriors?
She lived in Oakland. Kyle.
He's the point guard on the Warriors. He's the best shooter of all time. What else do you want to know? You want to know the starting five of the Warriors? I got you.
So
I feel like you're putting me on this. I feel like you're putting me on the
No,
spot.
I don't watch sports. Is this
Oh.
basketball?
It's basketball. It's the
Oh, he's
NBA.
on it.
He's the best. I thought you were like, let's see if Emily knows about the Warriors.
That trick
Actually,
question took a turn, Kyle.
that
That
trick question
really took a
really came
turn.
back at you. I don't watch any sports but basketball, specifically the NBA. And so,
Well,
if
so
you were
my
to
second
ask me
question,
about
this rolls
any
into it.
other, thing, I wouldn't have known.
I was going to say, let's set the record straight. Who's Steph Curry and who's Taylor Swift?
I'm Steph Curry.
Yeah, I think that's clear. I don't associate with Taylor, but I think in this case, she's the only one I actually know of the two of them, so I'll take it.
I admire Taylor as a marketer, but I do not personally listen to Taylor Swift.
I'm right there with you. I like the songs of hers that like a DJ takes it, speeds it up about 50% and adds like a beat to it. And I'm like, all right, I can get on board with Taylor.
Hot take, I find her voice a little annoying.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm going to piss some people off with that. But anyway, I mean, I do respect her and her team as marketers. They've done an insane job, but that doesn't mean I have to listen to it. But
I'm confused.
teach their own.
Are we talking about Taylor, the events manager at Klaviyo, or somebody else?
Yeah, that's who we're talking about. Yeah, that's who Kyle is. Kyle's the alter ego.
Yeah, events manager at Klaviyo. And then, CMO at HubSpot. Emily, there are a few of your frameworks that I find myself just referring to like as if just everyone knows about them. And then I find that not everyone does, which shocks me.
Yeah, I do this too.
So I want to go through a couple of them. First of all, what's RAM?
RAM is Random Acts of Marketing, which is then abbreviated RAM, which can then be pronounced RAM. And it is symbolized by the RAM emoji. But random acts of marketing are just like when you're doing every request thrown at you, checklist marketing, just everything without necessarily like strategy or an idea of how it's going to help you win or if it makes sense for your company. You're just doing all the things. Like you're doing the billboards, you're doing the, random request, random campaign, random trade show that someone asked you to do, just with kind of reckless abandon. I actually used to have it on my wall and then my partner made me take it down. She was like, it's weird to have your own frameworks on your wall in your office. And I was like, yeah, but like, it's better than like weird, than like personal stuff. So she made me take it down, but it's like the RAM in a no sign. So it's not up anymore. Else I could just be like, it's that, which would have been a good, kind of cool maybe, but not really. Cause then my own frameworks are still on my own wall. But anyway, that's what it is. And it's kind of like everything I write about is essentially like, how do you avoid doing RAM?
I told CJ we were going to talk about RAM today, and he got really excited because he thought we were talking about cars. Sorry, CJ.
Oh, there's
I'm
also a
still
Dodge
downloading.
RAM.
Yeah, I thought we were going to talk about pickup trucks.
I mean, we could. I don't know that much about them, but sure.
There's one other framework I wanted to ask about you. What's fuel and what's the engine? Go into this
this
car
is
metaphor.
probably the other like underlying framework to all of MKT1 or Market One. You can say either it's a bad name, stuck with it. Don't take the vowels out of your name, not a good idea. But anyway,
it's like every
that's
SaaS company in 2021.
Yeah, we started.
thing.
So this is not what you asked me, but the story is that I was actually advising with a friend of mine, Kathleen, who's co-founder of Market One and is now a investor at Pear Ventures. But she and I were just advising companies together, and we're like, we need a name, and it was just like a working name because I actually use MKT as like the abbreviation for marketing, like in projects and stuff. Like I'll just be like MKT this when I was leading teams, and so we just like went with that, and it was never intended to be this like newsletter thing, and then it was too late. So that's how it happened. But nobody knows how to say it. I don't really care if it's MKT1 or Market One. But point is that fuel and engine is just the basic way that I explain what marketing does. I think people get really bogged down in what does a product marketer do and what does a content person do and what's the difference, especially what's a growth marketer, especially non-marketers, so founders and other people in the company kind of get stuck in that. And I think just having a better shared language for what it exactly is that marketing does is needed. So I use fuel and engine. So fuel is all the things that you create. It's therefore the content, the copy, the messaging, the design, the creative assets, all of that. And the engine is how you distribute those things. So it's all of your channels and targeting, you just distribute it. And you have to have both fuel and engine to succeed at marketing. And most companies like over-index in one direction. So they have a really strong engine. Classic example is like you're sending tons of outbound emails, but they have no fuel. So those outbound emails say nothing, add no value, aren't relevant at all. and just say like, book a meeting with me, or some stupid thing about like my, cousin's brother went to the same college as you. And that's not fuel. So that's like too much engine, not enough fuel. And then too much fuel, a lot of startups have this too, where they've made all of this content, or maybe they even have like a podcast, and then they don't have a way to distribute it. So just no one sees it at all. And so you have to have these things in balance, and you have to also have them match your audience. So you need the right fuel and the right engine for your audience, and also for each other. So sometimes people make the wrong fuel for the channels they're using. Like they're, I don't know, doing a bunch of stuff on LinkedIn, but most of their content is like ebooks. Like that's, I mean, I guess it could work with paid, but I'm just picking on
This
ebooks.
is like
but
2008 marketing. I do love it because that's like,
I just like
when
to
I
use
joined
things that
marketing.
people hate
But-
because it makes the frameworks even more salient,
I personally
yeah.
love the fuel versus engine analogy because I feel like I go into a marketing org and they're always over-indexed on one or the other, and it's kind of unpredictable which, but
Yes.
they're almost never in balance. And so
Never.
that one was like, this is pure brilliance.
It also swings back and forth, and that's okay. So I tell people when they're thinking about hiring, whether it's the first marketer or your 27th, like, where are you out of balance? Like, where's the bigger problem right now? So if a founder is like already made a bunch of, is sort of a thought leader, has a bunch of, opinions, like maybe you don't need the marketer that really indexes on that. You need an engine, and, vice versa. Or if you're, at 26 people hiring the 27th, like maybe you've hired a bunch of, product marketers in a row, and you really have your ICP and positioning and messaging all nailed down, but you don't have any way to get it out, there. So maybe it's demand-driven growth. So it works for lots of reasons, for explaining marketing, for figuring out hiring, for figuring out where to focus, to figuring out why nothing's working, like all of those things. So works pretty well, really just painfully simple, but yeah, it works really well, especially for marketers talking to founders and trying to explain what the hell they do.
So if anyone's listening here, if you're trying to diagnose a marketing problem, 2 places to look is that how much RAM do you have going on? And is it a fuel or an engine problem? I wanted to switch gears a little bit.
It's a pretty good
Now
summary, Kyle. You don't have to
That's
read
what I
any
do.
of my
I'm
stuff.
ChatGPT, but for podcasts.
Kyle just nailed it. Just everything that I write about.
So we've got a marketer here and we have a CFO. And so I thought it'd be fun to talk about something that you guys could maybe fight about a little bit, which is 2026 goal planning, because I don't think a marketer and a CFO have ever been on the same page with goal planning. BCJ, what are your biggest pet peeves that marketing does with goal planning?
Kyle's like, over to you, CJ. Now, can you please insult Emily, who you don't know that well?
No, I'm ready. Because I just wrote something about this, and I have lots of opinions, and I actually don't think ours might be that different. We'll see. Let's see what happens.
Well, my first question would be, what data points do you think marketers need to be successful? Because there's always this funny dance that happens at first, right? Where you have this kind of top-down budget, and then you have this bottoms-up budget. And the bottoms-up budget seems to be when the marketer is brought into the fold, but then you have to diagnose what pipeline sources do we have for next year? What are our sales motions that are the same or different? Like, it's kind of a multivariable problem. So I'm just curious, what do you think you need to be successful?
Yeah, for sure. I think the first thing is that a lot of marketers and finance people just don't do the bottom-up version of the forecast. Like, they just take the top-down number and assume it's going to work. And oftentimes, like, I see a top-down number and then I look at like the ICPs you're going after, and I'm just like, you can't send this many emails out because you only have, you can't send 1 million emails when you have 5,000 accounts you're targeting. Like, the math doesn't math. And so for finance and marketing, it makes sense to look at the forecast from both ways, from top down. What do we need to achieve to stay on our overall growth trajectory? What's going to help us hit that? And then what's actually possible when we start at the beginning. And so both of those things are necessary. So I think a lot of teams just don't spend the time to do both. And a lot of finance teams I've seen just like don't necessarily encourage the bottom up forecasting. Like, maybe they say they want to do it and they just don't. Or they start their bottom up forecasting from pipeline, which you can't start from pipeline. You need to start earlier, whether that's if you're doing, like, I recommend if you're using sort of the account-based or account-driven foundation, you start with the number of accounts you have and what market share you think you can get based on what activities. But anyway, and if you're still in like a lead-driven inbound world, then you're going to start with form fills, or I used to say start with web traffic, but I no longer think you should do that because web traffic is changing so much because of AI. So anyway, I think there needs to be a shared understanding that you need both. And I think marketing typically needs help with the bottom-up forecast piece. Not all teams. it depends on the size and if you have someone that's really sort of good at that. So I think there needs to be help on that. I think in terms of inputs, I recommend that people kind of do the budget calculations and the forecast in tandem. That only makes sense. And actually just put out this like very basic calculator for marketing budgets. I don't know when this podcast will come out, but we'll just say recently to keep the time a mystery, you know? So recently, and I made these two tools in Lovable. One was just a basic budget calculator, and it actually bases your budget off of efficiency metrics like CAC ratio and payback period and LTV to CAC and what you're targeting. And it's like a really simple way to just get like a swag on what when you say a swag, like a guess, is it then a swag or is it just still a swag?
I think there's the silent C in there. Swag.
Well, with like things I give you, stuff we all get is swag, but then is it originally like a swag?
Oh, deep.
Yeah. Nobody knows. Kyle,
but on the math problem, Emily, as a CFO, I actually find the marketing back of the envelope math a lot harder than the sales one. Like with sales, you can try to just do the deterministic price times quantity with reps and ramp them up over time. But you made an astute point that a lot of people stop just at pipeline, like, oh, the sales goal is $1 million, so therefore we need 3x in the enterprise, we need 3 million. You actually have to work backwards to gross up how many compelling events to actually put a receipt on the table.
And you have to look at your historical conversion rates and say, these are our historical conversion rates throughout the life cycle. No, we probably can't like make all of the conversion rates go up at once to possibly hit this number. Like if we increase the ones more at top of funnel, beginning of the life cycle, the ones that like down funnel, they're going to go down. Like you can't increase all of these things at once. And so you've got to get the gut check. And the bottom of forecast is really, to me, that gut check of, is this possible? And then diving into, how am I going to do this? Like, what is going to be the biggest lever? And so in theory, you need to build a model that you can say, like, here are the things I think this campaign or initiative will impact. Like, is that actually going to move the needle? So hopefully it's like a living, breathing thing that you can kind of do a quick gut check on some of these activities. And so I think the thing that marketing needs to understand is like, marketing really does need to understand those efficiency metrics I mentioned and like what they mean and why they matter and how they factor into the things that they do. And then I also think they need finance to be on the same page that like, hey, when we do this work of like going backwards so we can see if this is possible, like, I need you to give a shit, because that's the frustrating thing. When you're like, hey, finance, I did all this work. Like, this is just not possible. Like, the math doesn't math. I'm not trying to be conservative here. The math doesn't math. And they're like, we can hit it anyway. And you're like, no, but like, really, we can't. And so that's my
You're just sandbagging. Yeah. Here's double the target for half the budget. You'll make it work.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I made a mistake on that once, and Kenny, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but I gave this fine gentleman a quota that seemed totally realistic on paper from a dollar perspective. But what we didn't do was the math backwards to say not only how many deals would he have to close, he would have to close 1.2 deals a day, but how many opportunities that marketing would have to generate for him. And I didn't even give marketing a budget to work for this guy on his behalf. So like I totally screwed him over in the sense that like I didn't give him the resources. But like if I gave that number to the board, they'd be like, oh, it's a quota of $800,000 this year. That totally makes sense. But the math didn't math.
And so many companies just like don't do that work or don't have time to do the work, or honestly don't want to do that work because they just want to like think that they can hit it because that's what they're supposed to hit. And I don't really know exactly why you wouldn't want to do that math and figure it out. But
Emily, one thing I struggle with here, there's like scaling things that you know work. So you went to an event, you sponsored a booth, whatever. Now you want to do 3 of those, fine, right? If you've never done something before, how do you figure out how much budget you're going to need and how much it's going to generate?
I mean, this is where I come back to, like, I like doing, when we got stuck on the swag estimate thing, like, I like to look at, well, what can I spend overall? And then sort of say, well, if I don't exceed this number, like our blended CAC is going to be okay. So I like don't love looking at every single thing in isolation and saying like, well, there's 2 things here. I don't like when people report on such a granular level that they're making micro optimizations because all of marketing needs to work together. And so I see people like, this channel within this campaign didn't work. And it's like, well, you have to look at things holistically. So I think it's like kind of a fool's errand to say that every single thing is going to have ROI and we can optimize it within the little thing. Does that make sense, Kyle? Kind of?
Yeah. So you're basically baking in if you're kind of taking a broader view and saying some
Yeah.
of these things are going to work, some of these things aren't going to work.
Yes.
We're going to improve the performance that we expect in some
Yes.
areas, and we might lose in other areas, but it all kind of works itself out in the
Sort
end.
of. I mean, but at the same time, I do recommend for your like, I'm a big fan of like listing out what I call like your big bet initiatives. And I am a fan of sort of like modeling that out of saying like, what could this do? Where might this hit? You know, what's the biggest gain we've gotten from something kind of similar or something that this targets this audience at this stage in their life cycle? What's the biggest gain we've gotten before? Do we think it'll be bigger than smaller than this? What's the biggest, you know, increase in that conversion after that we've gotten? Like whatever it is, where like what's the biggest swing you've ever had? And you think it's going to be bigger than that or smaller than that? I think that can be a kind of like, what's the elasticity of this metric that we're trying to move? Like how much does it actually move? Because again, people will be like, we're going to triple this. And it's like, well, you've only ever 1.5 times before. So how is this program going to be different? So I think it's all sort of, I think there's ways to logic into it. But I think if you try to like overthink every dollar you're going to get out of something when you're doing budgeting and forecasting, you're going to get lost in the weeds.
Emily, you brought up coming up with what I call a budget envelope, a total amount that we're going to spend on marketing. And we know that that cost plus the sales cost, that all ends up in your CAC payback period calculation. Something that I've struggled back and forth with CMOs in the past is how much of that should go to people versus the program spend over time. And there seems to be this evolution where you need some butts and seats in order to spend the program money. So you're ramping up people over time, and then eventually you add in more program spend. But what is grinding my gears in the past is, say there's $5 million up for next year. The CMOs want like $3.5 million to be spent on people and 1.5 on programs. And then once we get into the year, they're like, well, I can't deliver that because I only have 1.5 million in programs. So it's like, I don't know, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Mm-hmm. I think that CMOs need to have a better handle on these trade-offs. I think a lot of CMOs don't necessarily see it, even though they understand that like when you calculate total CAC, your headcount and your program spend and sales headcount and sales total spend is all in there. Like they don't think of it as like these are actually trade-offs. They think of them in isolation. I think finance often asks for them in isolation. Like what's your hiring plan? And maybe that even comes from like the people team. What's your hiring plan for next year? And then your budget. And they're not necessarily like, again, done as iterative things. Sometimes they are, but all of these things, your hiring plan, your budget, your forecast kind of has to be iterative. And then I think as you go through the year, I never felt like there was a conversation I could then have with finance, people team, whoever else is involved, which is like, hey, I'd actually rather trade this hire for more spend because we're fine, or vice versa. Like those conversations don't happen. And again, you're like optimizing within the bucket you've been given. And I think you need to be able to have those broader conversations, especially with AI, when we really just don't know what it actually looks like to have like hybrid AI plus or agent plus human teams. Like we don't know what that looks like. We don't know how the budget's going to best be spent in the next 6 months, year. So there needs to be conversations quarterly, I would say at least, if not more often, on like, hey, does this headcount program division still make sense? You know, without taking up everyone's time all the time. You don't want to be in constant planning mode, but it's like, we can hire this extra person, but we can't spend on this, which is going to deliver more value and when. So I think those conversations need to happen. And I think you're right. They don't usually happen with CMOs.
One other question for you, Emily, in this topic. What's the biggest mistake you've made with annual planning?
I think I've spent too long trying to make a perfect model. I like math.
But you're
Maybe
a
not as
marketer who
much.
likes math?
Yes. I
That
am
exists?
a marketer who likes, and I like
Say
design.
more.
So I like to be in spreadsheets and doing things like that. I mean, I just built like calculators, and I like to be in Figma all day too. So I don't know. Very
Unicorn
special.
marketer.
Something like that. No, I think that's why I've been able to be so successful in marketing is that I've always been like that. Like I have an artist mother and a software engineer father. So it's like in my brain, right, to be like that. I think it's super helpful. But I think in the past I've gotten lost in the weeds of trying to make a perfect forecast and plan everything out and spent so much time trying to like finesse those things to get numbers to match or this to work with this that I haven't spent time during the planning process on figuring out what are the big bets that are unique to our company that play to our advantages that are going to move the needle. And that also has to happen during planning. So I think often teams spend too much time, like I think you need to do all of these things, but they spend too much time spinning their wheels on some of these forecasting budget things and not enough time saying, well, like what are the big things that are actually going to help us do this? And I've done that a bit in the past, or I think earlier in my career leading marketing teams, just like building the theoretical thing, spending more time building the theoretical thing than the real thing.
Get out of Excel and focus on what you're going to do differently next year.
Yeah, a little bit of Excel, a little bit of math. Make sure the math maths. Beyond that, yeah, go figure out big things.
All right, Emily, I'm an aspiring LinkedIn influencer, as my parents think I do for a living.
That's more advanced than what my mom thinks I do for a living.
I know.
Finfluencer is a kind of a cool term.
I
Yeah,
just
well,
like
I
it.
Do you
want to
play
say
with
about
sharks as part of that?
Good one.
that is
I
by
just
far the
like it
worst joke
as
you've done on this podcast.
I liked it. I liked it. I laughed. I just like LinkedIn influencer. Like it doesn't need to be LinkedIn influencer. You have so it's just one. It's a portmanteau, and I've been meaning to make hats, and I just never have. So there's that.
I want to get smarter on the network effects at play here. And I've seen your posts about having a flywheel. So maybe for the benefit of listeners, you could explain what even having a flywheel on LinkedIn is and some of the steps to try to get there.
People spend a lot of time posting on LinkedIn, but then they stop with the post. So what happens is usually companies have a bunch of disparate things or a handful of disparate things happening on LinkedIn. You have the aspiring LinkedIn influencer, in your case, that's hard to say, or whoever it is. Maybe you have an executive trying to post and become an influencer. Maybe you're doing a bunch of sponsored posts with existing influencers. Maybe you're also running LinkedIn ads with a whole separate agency. And then maybe you have like a company account that is also posting random stuff. And you occasionally someone goes in and comments on these things, but not with any regularity. And so you need to put all this together instead of having it be piecemeal or random acts of marketing. You need to put it together into like Flywheel. And so there's actually a pretty like logical flow you can follow here to make everything better on LinkedIn. So the idea is that an individual, be it an executive at your company or be it sponsored post, kind of depends there who you have within your company, what following they have already. If you want to make someone sort of a LinkedIn influencer, they already are. Or like if you're going to do sponsored buys, you can do these in conjunction. I'm spending too long on this thing though. Individual posts on LinkedIn, not your company. Individual posts do a lot better than company posts, unless you're some outlier with some crazy company following. Then you should boost those posts as a thought leader ad. Thought leader ads on LinkedIn are like the most slept on LinkedIn ad type. You go into LinkedIn ads, you ask the person that posted via LinkedIn, you send a request that's like, hey, can I use this as a thought leader ad? And what a thought leader ad is, it's basically the person's post boosted or the person's post promoted to more people, the actual post. And so a company can put money behind a sponsored LinkedIn post, behind an executive's LinkedIn post, they can put money behind it. And it looks mostly like an organic post. There's a small little indicator. And this way you're boosting the post significantly to drum up more engagement. And then as you post, when you originally post boosted, make sure the person that posted and the person people they mentioned in the post are then commenting back to boost engagement. So you're doing all of this to drive engagement. And then even if you get this thought leader ad part right, which is just putting like $100 behind things can make it go so much further, then they stop there. And that's not where you should stop either. You then need to look at who's engaging with your LinkedIn posts and use that as a signal. This doesn't mean follow up with every single person with a spammy, like, do you want a demo? It doesn't mean following up with everyone with a connection request necessarily. It means pulling that information from LinkedIn, matching it up with the accounts that you're targeting, and then figuring out the appropriate follow-up campaign. Maybe it's just, they engage with your thing, so they're probably more likely to want to go to an executive dinner that you're planning that they're going to attend. Or they've commented on 5 of your posts and a connection request makes sense. So figure out what makes sense for the follow-up. And now this then continues. Now you have more people that you're connected to. In theory, depending on the LinkedIn algorithm, they'll see more of your posts. You'll get more engagement in general, and you'll be able to turn this into something actually like known, quantifiable ROI. So that's the idea of the LinkedIn flywheel. Don't do all of these things individually. Do these things together. So combine your organic posting, sponsored posting, executive thought leadership, paid LinkedIn commenting, and signal-based campaigns together into this flywheel.
CJ, is this
Done.
enough to make you
Solved.
a finfluencer?
I think I'm there. I think I've seen the light. To tie it back to what we started the pod with, I've observed 2 things about LinkedIn. One, that companies are incredibly cringe, especially B2B software companies. There's nothing less sexy than an enterprise B2B sales MarTech tool trying to be cool on LinkedIn. And the second thing is, it just feels like we're all I learned a new term, where all this RAM is going down. People are just throwing stuff
So
out
much
into
RAM.
the ether. But it's so much RAM. I mean, I don't even know. It's but like it doesn't tie back to anything. It's just out there.
Yeah. And then people aren't doing the follow-up, and then they're like, I keep posting, it's not working. And I'm like, well, maybe post a little bit less and comment a little bit more. I mean, Kyle always talks about this. Post a little less, comment a little bit more, comment before you post, comment after, comment on other people's things, and get this system really going.
Who should do this at the company? So I found I was kind of playing this role at OpenView for a while, but I feel like there's a lot of hesitation with companies to have it be from someone that's not a founder, because that person could
who should the
leave
influencer
company
be?
and
I thought
take
you meant who should own this.
Yeah,
and
who
that's a
should be
whole
the
other problem.
influencer?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I think
should it be the founder? Should it be an employee? What do you think?
I've had lots of conversations about this, and I think you've got to go. You can't. I have this. I don't make a lot of memes. I don't know. It's not. I like memes, but I don't make many of them. But I've made one, which is a picture of a horse and a man dragging that horse to water, and it talks about how. I relate it to LinkedIn. We can pull that up or something, or share it after. But basically, it's like you can lead a founder to the LinkedIn swamp and try to make them right. But if they really don't want to do it, they're not going to be good at it, because it's not just, you can write all the posts you want for them, but they really need to be the ones that go in there and comment. It's hard to really comment as someone else. And you can tell, especially if it's someone at like the founder level that has distinct thoughts, like you kind of know. So they need to be willing to do it, willing to engage with it. It's also like people might need to log into your LinkedIn account as you, or they either need to post it. And so in either case, the person needs to be comfortable with this whole thing. And so I think it's great for it to be a founder because they're committed to the company for a longer time than, say, maybe an average employee. But it only makes sense if they can really talk about the topic. And so if they're truly not a subject matter expert, or you truly cannot lead that horse to water and make them drink, it can be fine if it's someone else in the company. So if you're targeting marketers, it could be your marketing leader. If you're targeting finance, it could be your finance leader, which might be a little harder. CJ's got a run on the LinkedIn finfluencer market. I don't think there's that many finance leaders that want to be that. But yeah, I really just think it highly depends on who has the appetite for it and who has the appetite for it and the availability for it. And I think, I used to feel the same way. What if the employee leaves the company and then what? And they built up this whole thing. And now you've given them this huge platform and they've built it up. And it's like, well, employees build up lots of skills when they work at your company, in theory. They get better at marketing, or they get better at forecasting, and those skills go with them too. And you train them up on it. So it's kind of the same thing. They're building a skill, they're building their marketable skill set, and one of those things might be a LinkedIn following. In that case, though, when you are using an employee, I do think, or an executive, I do think it's helpful to have two people trying to build things up. So you do kind of have that backup plan.
One thing I've been noticing on LinkedIn is they keep asking me to pay to boost my own post, which I've never seen before. And it almost feels like they're holding me hostage. If you don't pay to boost this, we're not going to show it to anyone. Have you seen that? Is LinkedIn too pay to play now? Is the window closed? What do you think about that?
I think it's much
Great
harder
question.
to build a LinkedIn following now than it ever was. And it's definitely harder. I get way, way, way fewer impressions on the same quality posts that I once had. And I just have I recognize that and know that that's going to happen. And so in some ways, maybe I post more per week because I know that's going to happen to keep impressions up. And in some way, I just accept it and hope that it's the right people that are seeing things. But I think that, it is more pay to play. And you can not pay to play and, see what happens organically. It's like anything. I could spend a lot of money on organic search to try to make up for the fact that I don't want to spend a lot of money on paid search, but you're going to have to make up the gap somewhere if that's going to be a huge driver for you. And so I don't pay to boost my own posts, but I do think thought leader ads for companies are a great idea to increase that engagement. And it is pay to play, but you can go pretty far without spending a lot of money. And that's just the way it is now. There's a lot of crap on LinkedIn. There's a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. And I think they have more posts than they can show in people's feeds at this point. And so that's kind of, I think you got to recognize it. And I think it's much harder to build an organic following. So I don't like it, but it is the way it is. And I think that is the truth, that it's more pay to play.
Yeah, I have a similar experience. I don't pay to boost. And, sometimes the algorithm still works and you're like, we're back in 2022. And then sometimes I'm like, wow, no one likes me.
Yeah, I definitely have days where I'm like, what? I thought this was so good. And it's just, there's so much timing and there's so much the activities you do on LinkedIn before and how fast people comment. And you could spend all day worrying about that stuff. But I think you say this as well. Your best idea is don't say the same exact thing, but if you have a great image, you can share the image more than once. People don't remember every single thing you did on LinkedIn. So if you truly feel like you have a great idea that didn't land, mix it up a little bit and try again. I reuse my frameworks all the time. So you don't have to have a net new thought. And if it fails once, give up on it. I think that there's so much to do with just timing and algorithm and what the platform's doing that day. So don't give up on yourself, Kyle.
Anytime I need someone to look at a post, I'm like, let's go back to the well here. Let's take one of these viral images.
Well, I do this thing where on my own like LinkedIn calendar where I actually like when I write a newsletter, I just put placeholders like out for months that's like something from that newsletter or this image from this newsletter. And I don't always do them at that time, but then if that week like I don't have as much stuff that I'm planning to do, I'm like, oh yeah, that newsletter, that image, that was a good one. And I literally like put them out into advance. Or put them out. That is not the way you say that. I plan them out in advance as placeholders. And it works pretty well for me to actually just remember what I've got.
Yeah, I like that too. The only thing I've done differently is I stopped scheduling posts in advance recently. I found that for whatever reason, pre-scheduling, I think the algorithm knows you're not live on LinkedIn at that moment.
Yeah, I worked at Asana for 4 years, and so I do everything in Asana, including my LinkedIn roadmap. So I'm just putting these as like, they're not even full built out thoughts, really. It's just like diagram from the LinkedIn Flywheel newsletter. And maybe I'll put the diagram in, or maybe I'll just like write to myself what it is to be fast, like super fast, just like ideas so I don't forget them, not scheduling them. I don't schedule them either. It makes me nervous. Then I can go to those when I'm going to generate posts for the week. So yeah, just scheduling and organizing somewhere else with random capture of thoughts. So 3 months from now, I don't forget that I made this cool flywheel thing.
We're going to ask Emily, we're going to put Emily on the hot seat and ask her which channels are hot or not. You know, I think it's hard to scale any channel right now. So maybe they're all just going to be not, but let's give this a try.
I won't give them all nots.
Emily, first up, intimate dinners.
Hot. That sounds weird when you said intimate.
Trade shows.
Hot, but not in that way. Trade shows. I'm going to always say not. I don't like them.
Gross.
Meme posts on LinkedIn.
All right. I'm going to make some people not like me, but not.
Intent-based outbound.
You're growing so fast. Intent-based outbound. Hotter than non-intent-based outbound.
What does that even mean?
Hotter than colds.
What? I feel so dumb. What is intent-based outbound?
It's like warm outbound, essentially. So warm outbound is by definition hotter than cold outbound.
I thought it meant like I definitely intended to send this email.
It's just if you're thinking about doing outbound, that's what it is.
All right. Sorry. I'll go away.
Parallel dialing.
Parallel dialing. Wow. Who answers their phone? I mean, I recognize that some people, only certain industries, people are actually answering their phone. People that are like working on job sites or working in the field, but not.
Ebooks.
Never.
SEO.
But not as some of the other things I said. There's still volume there. It's just, not growing. It's not growing, but it doesn't mean
AI
completely
discovery or AEO.
Hot, but there's still not as much volume there as in search. So, do with that what you will. But you should start focusing on it. You should start caring. It's changing things. Hot.
A couple more. TikTok.
For B2B brands?
Yep.
I mean, it's still not. I think some people are trying, but I don't see it succeeding.
Hiring CJ as a finfluencer.
Hot. The hottest of all the things that we said.
I have to warn you, I fucking love ebooks.
Finance
Spoken
loves
like
an
a
ebook.
true CFO.
Yeah.
All right, it's time for Benny's favorite segment, Business Blunders. Take it away, Kyle.
Okay, I have a business blunder this week. It's when companies tell me they're creating a community, and then I get invited to a Slack channel that is just other vendors pitching their products. A community is not a Slack channel that nobody asked for. I don't necessarily know what a community is, but it's not that.
That's a good one. Also, when you say blunder, Kyle, it sounds like you're saying blender, which is a blunder. Because I was like, a business blender? I was like, what is a business blender? I was like, I have a Vitamix. Like literally, like my mind, an hour into a podcast, I was like, what's a business blender? A business blunder makes so much more sense now with anyway. So
it sounds more delicious if you call it a business blender. So
I don't know.
I was
I don't know
just
what a
hungry.
business blender. I've talked about a number of my business blunders today, like when people post on LinkedIn and then do nothing with it, or set KPI goals and don't actually have like the big bets that are going to help you get there. I've had this business blunder I've had forever, and it came up at a dinner I was hosting the other night again. It's when teams just hire like 30 SDRs still. And I'm not saying go and use AI SDRs. I'm just saying like at a certain point, you need to take what SDRs are doing, that works and automate some of that. Like I never can see a situation where you need 30. It just doesn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to me a long time ago before there was all this technology, but you need to automate some of that out. And it just doesn't need to, SDRs don't need to, or BDRs don't need to scale linearly with revenue. And companies that do that, I think are just having way too many people. And I still see companies do it. And it's wild to me. I thought we were done with that now, but we're not. And this is not a slight to an SDR and people in their role, but it's just too many. Like, scale that. It shouldn't have to scale linearly with revenue.
I feel like
it's my forever business
CFOs
blunder.
were like, this is so much easier to model out with the forecast because they have a quota.
That's exactly right.
And they're like, marketing, that's really hard to forecast.
They can't model
SDRs?
it out. Yeah. CJ and I didn't have a chance to talk about that piece. Yeah, but it's so much easier to model it out. So they're just like, give more to sales. And it's like you're just not gonna get the same efficiencies you're gonna get. So
But could you tell me what's the difference between an SDR and a BDR? Like, is there a difference?
I don't know. Some people call BDRs the ones that do outbound and SDRs the ones that do like inbound follow-up, which I don't understand. I mean, like
I thought it was the opposite of that.
Maybe it is the opposite.
I have
don't
no
know.
idea.
Every time I say it, I'm just like SDRs or BDRs. I don't know. We should just call them DRs maybe, but then they're a doctor. That doesn't make sense. Anyway, it does. The set of activities doesn't make sense. Having a bunch of people do this stuff in silos doesn't make sense. And yes, you may need a couple for like fallout, but they should be handling the edge cases, not be the primary path. We could talk for an hour about what I think they should be doing, but instead go and hire 30 go-to-market engineers. No, don't do that either.
Spoken like a good Clay investor.
You should hire maybe one or two, not 30.
Next up, it's something that some of us tried this week. And first up, it's going to be Kyle.
All right. So this week I went to an in-person networking happy hour. I actually tried to avoid those, but I went, and then it was like partially inside, partially outside, and it started raining, and then everyone congregated inside, and the like introvert in me was like, this is way too noisy, way too many people. And so I just Irish goodbyed, and then I've never felt happier than that moment. It was the best decision ever. Highly recommend. Pro tip.
Just Irish
It's
goodbye.
so funny that was something you tried. Dude, I Irish goodbye everything. I have not Irish goodbyed any sort of happy hour. Like, they serve dessert. I'm just magically not there anymore. I'm at my family's Christmas party. They're like, oh, we're going to open gifts. I'm on I-93 North. Like, I'm out. I'm out, dog.
You sound like a really great person to invite to events, CJ. Can't wait to. Yeah, let me do something similar. Something I tried. So I'm doing something now called Market One Supper Club, which is what it sounds like. It's dinners, and it's co-hosted by Go-to-Market Products. And but the idea is that I want people to come back multiple times. I want people to like get to know some of the people. So when they come, it's not like I've never met any of these people before. I want people to have people that they can then like call or talk to in the future. And I can do that because I'm not a brand that's like selling to unique people, and I work with lots of different companies, so it works. So that's the idea of the Supper Club. And so I did my first official thing under Supper Club, but I'd done dinners before, and it actually worked. Like, a number of people who came to the dinner came back, and they all wanted to sit together, and I said that was fine, maybe spread out a little, but I did that. And then I also hate when conversations at those dinners are really awkward or feel really forced. So I have these like questions cards that I bring that are very branded. One of them has the no rams emoji symbol thing on it. They're blank on the other side, and I ask everyone to write a question down, and then we shuffle them. So you never have to reveal if it was your question or not. So it's like kind of anonymous, but someone asked it. So it's relevant to what everybody wants to talk about. And then we try to do one conversation around those questions. So this dinner format that I kind of tried with these question cards and having people come back worked. And it was very tolerable. It wasn't like the networking thing. People didn't ghost at all. I'm trying to remember if anyone just secretly left. I don't think they did. I think everybody said goodbye. And I think someone commented to me and was like, it was so great because I never felt like I was struggling for conversation, and the people there were also great. And so nobody felt awkward and uncomfortable and had to call an Uber early. So yeah, I'm hoping that I found a dinner format that works, because sometimes those things drag on and on and on, or you're stuck by someone that you don't really want to talk to for 2 hours. So
yeah, I think we've all been there. That's awesome. I love the question card, but passing it around, so you could be like, someone asked this question
exactly.
I am not growing pipeline, and what do I do differently?
Exactly.
It wasn't me that asked the question.
You don't feel as put on the spot. And if you say to people, oh, just ask any question you want, like, it's going to be the same few people doing it. So it kind of like makes it so, yeah, it's anonymous, but not anonymous.
Sounds way better than a Slack community.
I actually had a thought though. I was like, should I put everyone that's come to a dinner in a Slack group? And then I was like, nah. The temptation is always there.
I put you all in a WhatsApp group without your prior approval.
You know how many like Slack groups I have just like that are on the side of my main feed that just have notifications rack up, and it stresses me the hell out. But I'm like, I don't want to like delete it and then potentially lose it. But I just have all of these that I'm theoretically a member of, but have been not contributing for
Well, also
years.
when you delete it, doesn't it say like Kyle has left the chat? And then you're like, oh God. It like announces
you don't even
when people
know.
leave
If
channels.
I leave it, you don't even know what
I
it
don't
says
know.
about you.
You don't know. And then you don't know what people say about that. Like, ooh, I knew he didn't care about this Slack, you know? You'll never know.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that's all she wrote. Thanks for doing this, Emily.
Thanks, Emily.
Thanks for having me. It was fun. I didn't feel as insulted by CJ as I expected with that, comment that he was now going to
I'm a nice
insult me,
person,
so.
no matter what they say on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I can tell. Unless you invite you to a party and then maybe you're only kind of
Then-
nice.
Yeah.
Nice for a short time or only, and then he'll leave.
Mostly Growth is a Mostly Media production. Executive produced by Ben Hillman. That's me. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of CJ, Kyle, and Ben. Just some guys who love talking growth. Mostly. If you like this podcast, hit subscribe. Give us 5 stars or hit like. The algorithm overlords thank you. Drink water, call your mom, and have a great day.